Former Tennessee Governor and Knoxville Mayor Bill Haslam joining us. He's got a new book out, Faithful Presence. Governor, thank you for joining us.
It's a privilege to be here. Thanks for having me.
Busy time during the pandemic. Are you taking up a new hobby?
Well, it is. And I have new respect for real writers. I tell
There you
people,
go.
like, this is not something you just do on the side. So the challenge of writing to me was way bigger than I thought it'd be, but I also kind of gained a lot in the process.
Before we get into what's in the book, did the pandemic help spur you to start writing?
No, I knew I was going to write it, but it did give, as you know, a lot of other things in life got set aside. So it did, it forced me to say, to not be able to say, oh, I don't have time to do it right now.
Now, one of the things in the book, you say that you wrote this book because you're deeply concerned about our country, the divisiveness going on. What do you see in that, and what really made you pick up that pen?
Well, it's no secret today that our country's divided. What I think is kind of shocking to most of us, we're not just divided, but we're mad, and we think the other side has bad motives. You know, the motive, the attribution of bad motives to the other side between Republicans and Democrats today is greater than that between Israelis and Palestinians. So that puts it in scale, okay? And the question is, what are we going to do about it? Everybody realizes I don't like it, you know, and I hate where we are, but what are we going to do about it?
You talk about faithful presence. How do you have that in office, and how do you sort of try to guide the way you did things, well, whether you were mayor, at Pilot, or as governor of Tennessee?
Right. Well, I mean, one of the premises of the book is that people, you know, what's the answer to this polarization that's kind of got us at each other's throats? And part of the book is about how can people of faith make a difference in that? And so part of that is how we approach issues. And one of the things that I think we have not done a good job of is approaching them with humility. We all go into the public square, I'm right, you're wrong, and you have bad reasons for being wrong, instead of saying, I'm going to try to first go in and listen and approach with a different kind of more humble spirit, if you will.
One of the things you talk about in the book is the Bible being named the official book of the state of Tennessee, and your pushback on that, and everyone going, we elected this Christian governor, what's going on? How does that sort of play into this about how to have a faithful presence, but not necessarily kind of blinding yourself to everything else?
Yeah, so a lot of folks, I still get some angry emails today about vetoing the Bible. A legislature passed a bill to make the Bible the official state book, and I didn't think that was what the Constitution said. Plus, I thought it kind of demeaned the Bible to put it on the same level as a state insect and a state flower and state songs, etc. But what I try to make a point of is our Constitution is really special in this country, and what it says is religion is so important that the government shouldn't have any role in it. It shouldn't establish it. There shouldn't be any state religion, official government religion, nor should it prohibit the free exercise of it. And I think that's one of the things that's made faith flourish here in ways that it hasn't in other countries. So our responsibility is to make certain that we do both of those things, that we don't establish it as official state religion. That's probably not good for the church long term, nor do we prohibit people freely expressing their faith.
One of the other things you talk about is people of faith that are kind of torn right now. If you're too faithful and express that too much, that's kind of looked down upon. Where do people of faith stand right now?
Well, you know, I think one of the reasons I wrote the book is this, that my experience from being in politics is that people of faith, while we're supposed to be different, we're really not. We write just as hateful of emails as other folks do. You know, we tend to hide behind the anonymity of the internet and try to flame the other side just as much as folks do. And my urge, or my hope is that people of faith could really become different. You know, Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, if there's one kind of clear message, it's be different. And, you know, he says the salt's supposed to be different than the meat, the light's supposed to be different than the dark. Well, how do we do that in the public square? Because we're supposed to do that everywhere, not just at our home or at church, but in politics as well.
Another thing you talk about is the Centoya Brown story while you were governor. Towards the end of your time there in office, a whirlwind of national media, international media. How did your faith sort of guide you through that process?
Well, it's interesting, you know, when Snoop Dogg and LeBron and Kim Kardashian tweet about something, it tends to get a lot of response. And we were flooded with people, and I won't go into the whole Centoya story, tell it in the book, but she was a 16-year-old who had been sentenced to life in prison for the murder of someone she had met while she was working on the streets, which no 16-year-old girl does voluntarily. So the interesting thing here is kind of what I got to know her afterwards, after we had commuted her sentence to time served. And the interesting thing there is how our lives intersect. Two really different people. A white male from a fairly privileged upbringing in East Tennessee, an African-American woman raised in a biracial family, in and out of state institutions her whole life, and how God kind of intersected our paths in some really interesting ways.
I know you turned down or denied the opportunity to run for Senator Alexander's seat when he retired.
Right.
Is there any aspect, some people would say, this is a time when I would not want to be involved in politics, anything like that? How do you view this time? Do you see it as, it's someone that wants to make a difference should get involved?
Yeah, really great question. So I didn't run for Senate because I didn't think it was the right thing for me for a whole lot of reasons. Being governor, being a senator are two very, very different jobs. But I hope that people's reactions to this time is not, to times like this with all the bitter polarization, is not to say, well, I just don't want to play, because I know this. Being in public service, being a mayor and a governor taught me, if you really want to help serve the common good, if you want to help change the world around you, it's hard to leverage it in a way that can make as much impact as public office can. So I really hope that people of faith and others don't just say, kind of a pox on both of their houses, I'm tired of the Republicans and Democrats, I'm out of here.
And then finally, maybe the million-dollar question, how do we reunite the country? How do we get back to, you talked about Civil War times where it didn't seem as bad as things are now.
So my political mentor, someone a lot of folks from around here would know, Howard Baker, United States Senator, Majority Leader of the Senate, Chief of Staff to Ronald Reagan, and he was from just north of Knoxville in Huntsville up in Scott County. And Senator Baker always had a saying, always remember the other fella might be right. In other words, we have to remember, like, we go into these in these big arguments thinking, I'm right, you're wrong, and I don't even want to hear your argument. And it would help us to enter with this spirit of humility that says, always remember the other fellow might be right.
All right, May 25th, your book, Faithful Presence, coming out. Anywhere books are sold? Anywhere books are sold online, and they'll be available in bookstores here in Knoxville and the greater area as well. All right, check it out. Coming out at the end of May, Faithful Presence, Governor Bill Haslam. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it.